Hi, my name is Jenna Kaplan. I'm a current junior at Gunn High School, and I will be hosting today NC Youth Presents Young Political Activists in Palo Alto. I would now like to introduce our panelists.
My name is Yasmin Gavande. I'm a junior at Palo Alto High School, and I'm the founding chairman of the Young Americans for Freedom chapter at Palo Alto High School, and we just started this year.
I am Pablo Ruiz Tobarella. I am a board member of Young Americans for Freedom chapter at Palo Alto High School, and I'm here to present conservative values and many of relevant issues that affect society nowadays.
Hi, my name is Ori Gall, and I'm a freshman at Palo Alto High School, and I am representing the liberal view, and I just want to share my values and be a political activist.
Hi, I'm Olivia Chang. I'm a sophomore at Pali. I'm here because I want to understand what they believe, and I also want to represent the liberal side of the argument.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure having every single one of you here today. So the first issue that I would like to discuss and have you all talk about is the effect of the presidential elections that, as I'm sure we all know, happened exactly 1 year ago today, and how that influenced political participation and political discourse at school, along with responses to people's dress and behavior. So I would like to start with Yasmin.
So this past election was a very different election. We had two very interesting candidates, and especially Donald Trump. He is a character, and he says a lot of interesting things, and then the media perpetuates what he says and projects kind of what he says in an interesting way as well. And so you get a lot of people who are more interested in politics, either because, a lot of people are very for him or very against him. And so this kind of naturally gets people more involved in politics. So during the election, and especially like right after the election, there was a lot of debate, a lot of discussions about Donald Trump and his policies and Hillary Clinton. And so it definitely kind of opened the door to more political discourse at the school, in my opinion.
How is this reflected in your own club at school?
So yeah, I even started getting more into politics because of the election. It kind of opened that door up for me too, to kind of explore the political nuances and kind of what was going on around me in the world. So yeah, that definitely influenced me and my political thinking. I started getting more involved, as I just said. So,
thank you. We will now hear from Ori.
So when after the election happened, for me, I got a bunch of different views, but a lot of the people that I hung out with and was they were very surprised, and it happened more in a negative way for me. People were oh my God, this is a disaster, and people were joking around about moving to Canada and that kind of stuff. And yeah, for me, when at that time, a lot of my friends were really upset, and they were disappointed, and then they were everyone was joking that that Trump was gonna be elected. It was a joke. And then when he did get elected, a lot of my friends were surprised, and they just were worried, and they didn't know what was gonna be coming.
Thank you. Now we will hear from Pablo.
Last election in 2016 caused a major political turmoil in this country, but I think it also opened up a lot of conversation with other people about, your opinion, your political issues, and what candidate you side with. So even though it did cause an uproar between, and it did cause division between conservatives and liberals in this country, but I think it also meant a new start, and it opened up a lot of conversations to many people, and I think it helped, specifically in Palo Alto High School, for people to share their opinions more openly and not be as closeted in their political beliefs, if you might.
Thank you. Now Olivia?
After the election, I remember a lot of people really upset. I also remember being really shocked, like a lot of other people. I think, like you guys said, that it opened up discourse, because I was not paying attention to politics a lot before then. I definitely started paying attention a lot more after the election. I realized that I should pay attention to what is going on in our country.
Thank you. So now about a specific event that happened. About the week after the election happened, students staged a walkout called the Peace March. Could one person from each side please respond to how that made them feel, or what they thought the purpose behind that was?
So I guess I can start. So I feel like it was like a statement to like express freedom of speech and like how like every voice kind of matters, and I feel like they had the right to do so, and it's like part of like, you know, like the the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and I feel like their ideas of like going to the peace rally, I think represented like kind of like not like oh, I'm upset with this side, like oh, my voice matters and I just want people to know what I think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, contrary to popular belief, I believe that the walkout or the march that happened right after the election was rather a way for liberals and left people with left-leaning political opinions to just express their anger and disgust at, you know, the political spectrum here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just like a way to just cry with a lot of people. I don't think it had any political meaning or any possible outcome. I think it was just a way to state, oh, I'm sad this happened. I do not want Donald Trump to be my president. So I do not think that it was meant to have any change. It was just a way for people to express themselves.
In the future, if students would like to pursue some outlet for their political dissatisfaction, what do you think would be a more productive way to do this?
No, I definitely feel that marching is a productive way to express yourself. But at the same time, if you want to march, you want to have a reason and a statement, and not just saying, oh, Donald Trump is not my president. You should have, I don't know, another, maybe your platform or you believe in, or I don't know, if they march, for example, to protect minorities or to tell them that they were safe, maybe they should focus more of the walk on that and less on, oh, I do not like Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course.
I personally did not attend the march, but a lot of my friends did. And I think the march was a way to express how hurt people were, how sad people were. It was the peace march, right? And they were protesting what they saw coming from Donald Trump, what they saw coming from people on the far conservative side, and they wanted a way to express that. They wanted to show that like their voice also matters.
Do you think that the march was effective at doing this?
I think it did attract at least like some public, it did get people to notice them. I don't think, like Pablo said, they weren't really pushing a political agenda. So in that it helped people come together, I think it was effective.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Pablo, would you talk a little bit about any personal experiences that you or someone that you know may have had immediately afterwards?
Of course, the march was scheduled during school hours. It was specifically at, I think, around 2 p.m. on a Tuesday or Thursday. I'm not quite sure yet. And so what I did is me and my friend from the school, we were wearing MAGA, he was wearing a MAGA hat and I was wearing a MAGA shirt. And we got yelled at. We didn't get physically assaulted, as other people have talked about, but we felt that we're not safe in this position or situation. So we did not feel accepted, basically, in the march.
Do you have anything to add?
So yeah, I mean, kind of in that not feeling safe, supporting an unpopular person. So Jackson Drucker, a kid who goes to Palo Alto High School, he did kind of an experiment. He wore a Make America Great Again hat for 30 days, and he recorded what happened. And within that 30 days, he was verbally and physically abused. Someone actually punched him in the back of the head, took his hat, stepped on it. People said, I would like hurt you or I would shoot you or something right now, or crazy things. And you know, he was just expressing his views with a hat. Obviously, that did not solicit the response he got, but it kind of shows how polarized and paranoid a lot of people are. I think one of the largest problems is the media. So the media is very liberal. I don't think there's anything to debate with that. A lot of it's based in Hollywood. And I think they kind of project this kind of notion about Donald Trump that isn't always true. They say a lot of things that will freak people out about him and make them even fear him or hate him even more so than probably necessary. So that kind of adds to the polarization. I think if the media did an honest job with Donald Trump, we wouldn't have this kind of polarization. I think this really makes people more paranoid than it needs to be.
Sorry, just to add on what you said, I feel like, yes, that was very true, but I felt like it was also the opposite too. There was like many other news sources that did the same for Hillary Clinton too, that also portrayed her as an enemy or a villain. I just wanted to add that in because that was also a problem too, that it wasn't just that media, because there's like different sides of the media. Like there's like the left agenda and then there's the right agenda.
Yeah.
And like, you know, like right agenda is like the Fox News and that kind of stuff.
But there's much fewer right-wing media
I would like to comment
outlets.
on that real quick. There was a study conducted by Harvard University in early 2017, and the results showed that 92% of the media sided with Hillary Clinton in the election. So again, we do know that there's Fox News and there's Breitbart and a lot of news, conservative news outlets, but the amount of people they attract is significantly far less than, you know, liberal news outlets such as CNN or MSNBC or ABC News.
Sorry. Can I address the your statement that the media is biased towards liberals? Like, what study are you basing that on?
I mean, just look at CNN, look at the New York Times, look at Time Magazine. There's, you know, just look at how they show Republican and Democratic politicians. I mean, they literally, Time Magazine or some magazine showed Osama bin Laden in a nicer way than they showed Trump. You see magazine covers with Trump and they like make him a cartoon and they put like weird makeup and clothing on him, and they don't, like, another thing, here's something that got perpetuated is his Muslim ban. He never said we're having a Muslim ban. It was a travel ban on certain countries. If it was a Muslim ban, he would have also had a restriction with Indonesia because they have the largest population of Muslims, but he didn't. So that's just something that gets perpetuated. Also, the study from Harvard University, 92%. This is just this is just not really debated anymore. I feel like it's just, the media is very biased.
I disagree. There are multiple studies. For example, 2003, Evelyn and Shaw. I'm actually doing an AR project on this. 2010, Genskow and Shapiro. 2016, Budak and Rao. There's also another study in 2012 by Daniel Quackenbush. They all showed that though the media exists on a spectrum, they actually have no bias overwhelming bias towards either side. And the media, although the media did feature Donald Trump a lot, the media also treated Hillary Clinton's emails as just as an important issue as Donald Trump's rhetoric.
So those emails are actually a really good point to end on, and that will transition into our next segment. So for now, we will be right back after a short video about Village Harvest.
Hi, I'm Craig Deserens, and I'm the Executive Director of Village Harvest, and I'm one of the founding volunteers. Village Harvest helps people share the fruit growing in their backyards. We organize volunteers to pick the extra fruit growing in backyards all over Silicon Valley, and we pass it on to food banks to help feed people and help take care of neighborhoods. Out that even here in Silicon Valley, one of the most prosperous places in the world, that many people, like more than 1 in 10 people, need extra food. But in fact, it's growing all around us, so we help get that abundance to good use in the community. So Village Harvest got started many years ago, and we're actually now 16 years old. It really started from an invitation by the 4-H, the agriculturally focused youth group that was looking for fruit to be able to make preserves. And a few of us ended up scrounging fruit from friends and neighbors and discovered that how much there was growing in backyards that we had never even noticed before. And from there, it turned into organizing a harvest in Palo Alto. And we very quickly found out that there were both thousands of pounds all around us.
I decided to volunteer for Village Harvest probably because I really like the organization, as I really like the message behind it, picking off of people's trees who either don't use them. I think it's really awesome that it's something that can happen in a neighborhood, and that you can get a whole bunch of fruit. I mean, we've done like 600 pounds today so far, so get a whole bunch of fruit, help a whole bunch of people, so that then we can, and just off of people's trees.
What we do is good for the community in many different ways, as well as good for the trees and the planet. Here in Silicon Valley, we have so many homes with fruit trees. Most of that fruit doesn't get used because the trees are so happy that they put out a lot. by picking that fruit, we're able to sustain the life of the tree. We're able to help literally 100,000 people every year, and it's a very satisfying way for people in the community to give back.
Hi, once again, my name is Jenna Kaplan, and I'm hosting MC Youth Presents Young Political Activists in Palo Alto. We will now be getting back to programming and talking about the achievement gap that is so prevalent in the Palo Alto Unified School District. A report by Palo Alto Online stated that 63% of low-income students did not meet or exceed the standards laid out for them to have met the Smarter Balanced achievements. We will now be talking about potential solutions, causes, and issues related to this on both sides of the spectrum. We will be starting with Ori.
So I feel like to solve this issue, I feel like, or like at least try to help it, I feel like these students, like these low-income students, like they don't have like a lot of financial support, right? So they can't really get a tutor or like somebody to help them with these studies. So I feel like the schools should like try to like give them like some like way to like get them free and easy help that could be more like affordable and more manageable, and like they can find ways to like manage, like to find like solutions and times that like work for the student. So like maybe more like one-on-one sessions with these low-income students to really understand where they are and really improve them, and so that they're ready for the future tests.
So on that, where do you think that should start? Should it start in elementary school, middle school, high school? When will it most benefit the students?
I feel like it should start in elementary school, right when they're young and they don't really like when they're just starting to learn everything. So I feel like it would be best to get this one-on-one help as soon as possible. So when they're in middle school and in high school, they don't feel as stressed and they don't feel as pressured, and they do well throughout their education.
Thank you. Pablo?
I believe that the achievement gap in Palo Alto should not be an issue, basically because, as we know, Palo Alto has one of the best school districts in the nation. And I don't know about other schools, but my school, Palo Alto High School, offers free tutoring every day after school, math, 40 minutes, and you can go to the ARC and have private tutors for every single subject you want. Peers volunteer to help you and tutor you. So if students of low incomes do not perform as good as other students, maybe we should question why is that, and maybe it's because they're not willing to try as hard, because they do have all the tools. We have great public schools. It doesn't cost them a dime. I mean, the taxpayer money, but specifically to them, it doesn't cost them a dime. So I feel like it's more, they should have more initiative and be willing to study harder and get out of this hole.
Thank you. Olivia?
I don't think it's a matter of low-income students not having the motivation or drive. I think as a low-income student, you don't have the time to have a tutor. You don't have the money to pay for like SAT prep. You don't have the time to dedicate yourself to extracurriculars. You have to take care of your siblings, or you have to work a job to support your family. It's not that they don't have the initiative, it's more that they really don't have the same opportunities as people who might be higher income. And I think people of low income experience Palo Alto schools differently. Palo Alto might be a really great school, but Palo Alto district might be a really great district, but tutoring by a peer just can't compare to a tutor who's has years and years of experience that costs a lot of money.
I would just disagree with the first point. The best tutor I've ever had for geometry honors was someone who had gone through the curriculum and knew it by heart, because she knew it. I had a lot of frustration with hired tutors who literally were just stemming through the algebra book because they didn't even know what they were talking about. So I would disagree with that. Also, the Smarter Balanced test, it's not really you don't really need a tutor for it. It's more of if you can read and do math and stuff. And I mean, I never had a tutor for that. It was more like I just took the test and I guess I did okay. I don't know. But
so directly off what Yasmin is saying about how much of the Smarter Balanced test is things that many would consider basic, things that you learn in elementary school. It's clear that low-income students don't have the same access to this, as the statistics make it clear that they are not performing to the same level as people in higher income brackets. So that reveals a deeper problem. Would two of you from each, or one of you from each side, speak on what that may be and what's the most effective way for the schools to fix that?
Okay, so as a kid, I had lots of books, and my parents used to read me books because they had the time and they had the energy, and they had the they grew up with the they grew up with the environment of learning, and they knew that I should be able to read in kindergarten to meet certain standards. But I think as a low-income student, your parents might not have that kind of time. Your parents might be working multiple jobs to support your family, and they don't have the time to address the needs of every single one of their kids.
Thank you.
Well, actually, I kind of agree. I think it's probably more of like a cultural thing as well in some aspects of it. You know, some kids in low-income families may have other things that they value besides teaching their kids to read and do math. They may just have other things. I know, I mean, the culture for a lot of people here in Palo Alto, I mean, obviously Palo Alto is very competitive, the kids who are academic, it's very academically stressful for a lot of students, and I mean, that does start young, and so there's a lot of pressure on certain students, I guess, of higher income to do really well, and then I guess, you know, you have some students of lower income who where they come from, it doesn't value that as much, and so you would kind of get this difference in performance on the standardized tests.
Okay, thank you. So I think that a lot of really great solutions and roots to that problem were brought up. We are now going to move on to our next topic, one that is incredibly relevant in the nation right now and is currently being debated in Congress, in state legislatures, and throughout the country. And that is gun control. We, in the past few weeks, have had two major mass shootings, many of which have resulted in calls for increased gun control, increased mental health resources, and all sorts of new solutions or old solutions to the same problem. Now, would each of you give a short statement on what you think the best solution to curing incidents like these in our country is?
Well, we had a cure for one of the gun control. I know in Texas, the person who actually stopped, the way this man was stopped, he killed, I think, 26 people, more were injured. He would have killed more, but there was a good Samaritan with a gun. He was actually, I think he was a member of the NRA, and also I think he taught.
Yeah.
And he was a good Samaritan with a gun, and that's who stopped the bad guy with the gun. To stop the bad guys with the gun, you stop the good guys with the guns. Naturally, criminals do not follow laws. Gun laws are not an exception. Criminals will not stop because, oh, it's against the law. No. I think Chicago is one of the states that has, or not states, sorry, it's not a state, obviously, it's a city. It has some of the harshest restrictions on guns, but it also has the most, like, I guess, fatalities or deaths or crime rates with guns. And yeah, this is because, well, if no one has a gun and you know that it's Chicago, it's very hard to get a gun. Well, criminals know they don't have guns, they can't protect themselves, so we can go in and do whatever we want because there's no defense.
So yeah, I agree with that. I feel like we should, like, it's really hard to control guns. Again, as you mentioned, like, criminals will stay criminals. They will still want to have that power, and so they will, like, break any laws to do so. So I feel like the best solution is, as you mentioned, like, we should, like, start, like, trying to get medical treatment as soon as, like, somebody seems a little off or, like, a little, like, weird, and then, like should get, like, special treatment to, like, and, like, really make sure that they're okay so that they don't get to this point where they start, like, acting like a criminal and start breaking these laws and then starting, like, getting crazy and, like, starting to, like, do all these, like, mass shootings.
You said that a good Samaritan with a gun was the one who stopped the Texas shooter, but that's saying that the successful version of your plan was for 26 people to die. Like, we could have saved that 18-month-old child. We could have saved that 72-year-old with stricter gun control laws and better access to mental health care. But we can't have one or the other, because by if you took Stephen Paddock, the Las Vegas shooter, to any psychologist, the psychologist would not have blinked an eye. The psychologist would have said, this is a perfectly healthy guy. And he ended up buying 40 guns and shooting 50 people. Well, 500 people, 50 people died. We've got to have both increased access to mental health care, but we've also got to have more restrictions to guns, because no one needs 40 guns.
Yeah, I would like to go back to the Texas church shooting. The murderer or terrorist, however you want to call him, he was dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Armed Forces, and when anyone is dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Armed Forces, they're legally not allowed to own guns. So the guns he used to perpetrate this attack were illegally bought. So gun control should not have allowed him to have guns. Therefore, the guns he had were illegal. So the fact that guns were legal did not allow this thing to happen. It was actually the opposite.
This is actually a perfect segue into the next question, which is gun control is already something that is quite widely implemented in many places, but gun control enforcement is something that is much more spotty, as we've seen in numerous cases. So what do each of you think about, or one from each side, think the best way to enforce gun control that is already in place would be?
I think we should start with more vigorous background checks. I think it is far too easy to get a gun. Background checks sometimes take like only a few minutes. I think that we as a country should move away from having the right to own guns for everyone to having the right to own guns for good citizens. And I want to make the point that gun control laws may not stop people from buying guns, but it will stop a lot more people who could be potential mass shooters. And saying that criminals won't follow laws because they're criminals means that we just shouldn't have laws at all.
Okay, well, I think, have you ever bought a gun?
No.
So have you ever done a background? Have you ever like experienced the process? Because it's not an easy process. It's a lot harder than other governmental processes to actually get a gun, so that's not true. Also, so actually 1.3 million people a year are killed by cars. A car was also used in a terrorist attack recently. We're not talking about banning cars. And of course, the obvious answer to that is, oh yeah, well, cars, we can save people with cars, with ambulances, quicker transportation, obviously. Well, we also save people with guns. Obviously, the shooter saved or the Good Samaritan stopped the shooter with a gun. There's a study, so 13% of our crimes are in the U.S. Have a shooter coming into the home and when people are there. In Britain, where the gun laws are much stricter, 60% of crimes are done when people are in the house, because when someone's in the house, they have their money with them. And this is simply because they know no one's going to shoot them. So guns actually protect people, just like cars do, and both guns and cars do a lot of damage. Only like 50,000 people a year have some sort of, whether it being the police or just an injury or a death. 50,000 is the number for guns doing any kind of damage. 1.3 million, let's remind you, we have like a population of 325 million people. 1.3 million people die from cars and car accidents, and they can be used as, you can kill, arguably in some cases, more people with a car than you can with a gun.
Okay.
So, sorry I talked too much.
No, that's
Anyways.
all right. Thank you so much for your input. Thank you all so much for your input. Every single one of your voices is so important and so interesting for everyone to hear, as especially for some of us, our voices tend to be underrepresented in Palo Alto, so it's great to have a platform where all of this can be represented. So thank you so much for watching MC Youth Presents Young Political Activists in Palo Alto.